All right, welcome back for another video in the Radical Marketing series I'm doing here. I'm rereading the book Radical Marketing by Sam Hill and Glenn Rifkin. It's a book written in 2000 about radical marketers, but it still has a ton of great learnings for today. My name is Jared Schilling. I'm with The Business Technician. We're a Salt Lake City small business consulting service trying to help business owners who have successful businesses but are on the verge of or are actually burning out by implementing some very simple systems and practical solutions to help them kind of free up some mental capital to use in other places. Today, I wanted to talk about the 10 rules of radical marketing. I'm doing this in a two-part video series. Part one will just be the first 5 rules. Part two will be the second 5 rules. But one thing I wanted to touch on, and if you haven't watched the first video, which goes over the 3 key differentiators of radical marketers, I'll pin that up here in the corner. But one of the key differentiators is that radical marketers have a visceral and intimate tie to their target audience. So it's critical, especially if you're a newer business, small business, like who is your target market? And I just wanted to give a little example here because if this isn't well known, a lot of these rules don't make a ton of sense because you're just going to be running around like a chicken with its head cut off trying to figure out who your market is while doing this stuff. So give you a simple example. Let's say you're a med spa, right? In Salt Lake City. And it's you, 3 estheticians, and an office manager. So there's 5 of you total. And you have 2 strategies for who to target as your market and for your sales and marketing strategy. Strategy number 1, you focus specifically on hairstylists and dental assistants to be your customers. Now, why is this helpful? Well, hairstylists and dental assistants do something all day. They talk. And they talk to your potential customers. Especially with like hairstylists and med spa, facials, all that stuff, like that tends to tie together really well. So strategy number 1 is to focus on hairstylists and dental assistants as your first customers. Strategy number 2 is spending a bunch of money to try and rank highly on Google, whether that's through using an agency for SEO or you're actually paying for the ads to be ranked really high, and it's incredibly expensive. You're flyering random events. You are going to networking events and handing stuff out and trying to meet people randomly. You are sponsoring your child's Little League team or something like that, but you're never actually there in person. Strategy number 1 will absolutely blow away strategy number 2. Why? Because the dental assistants and hairstylists who are talking all day to many of your other potential customers are evangelists for your product. They're literally wearing your product on their face, right? And when the people they work with want to know how their skin looks so beautiful, who do they talk about? They talk about you, and that network effect begins to grow from there. It might take a little longer to get in with the dental assistants at the dental offices or the stylists at the salons, but if you can create those beautiful, visceral, intimate ties and create evangelists for your product or service, that will win out time and time again over random marketing strategies with no specific target. So I just want you to keep that in mind as we go through these 10 rules. So let's start with just a quick overview of the 5 rules. Number 1, the CEO or the owner must own the marketing function. Number 2, make sure the marketing department starts small and flat and stays small and flat. Number 3, get out of the office and face to face with the people who matter most, the customers. Number 4, use market research cautiously. And number 5, hire only passionate missionaries. So let's start with the first one here, which is the CEO, again, or the business owner, must own the marketing. Okay, so you don't have to do everything as a small business owner in regards to marketing and sales, but you must own it. Like in today's world, you are the face of many businesses. You are the face of it, okay? Some examples they gave in the book was the Harley Davidson, both the CEO and the chairman were known for riding with customers, going to the rallies with customers, and then getting marketing ideas from the customers themselves. So you're literally sitting there like, what a win-win. You know, you've got a passionate Harley Davidson owner who's at a rally, the CEO is there, and the CEO is asking the person who actually buys the products, what would good marketing ideas be? And the owner's like, holy smokes, like I get to stand here with the CEO of Harley Davidson, like my favorite motorcycle brand of all time. And simultaneously, the CEO and the chairman and other professionals from the business are getting genuine marketing ideas from the people who matter most, the customer. Richard Branson, when he launched Virgin Atlantic Airways, which is, he had a lot of businesses, a lot going on. He showed up in person in 1920s, like aviator garb with the goggles and everything like that, to launch that business. For an example with the med spa, again, if you're going after dental assistants, like, are you the one showing up at the dental office? And again, as your business is growing, you don't have to do this all the time, but once or twice a week, if you're the one showing up at the dental office with some crumble cookies and 20% off your first hydrofacial, or some product samples of the skincare stuff you sell, like, you're the face of the business, and being there in person is huge. It makes people feel like you actually care and you're not just there to get their business. So one simple way to do this, if you're a busy business owner and you're just starting up and you got a lot going on, you don't have a huge team, is to optimize your operations so you can keep a pulse on the marketing effort without being overwhelmed. So when you start your Monday morning, you know what's going on. You have systems in place to handle everything from, invoicing, hiring people, how your product and service is getting delivered, ordering of materials and supply, like all that stuff. The more that's optimized, you'll find the more free mental capital you have to focus on the customers, because that's what matters most. There is no business without customers, right? The next one here is make sure the marketing department is small and flat. So what do we mean by that? Don't play telephone. If you remember the game when you were younger, you say something to someone, they say it, and it goes down. By the time it gets back to you, it's a totally different thing they're talking about, right? So we have to get face to face with the customer and understand what they're talking about. So Jim Koch of Boston Beer Company, very famous for having no marketing department for his first 10 years. Like, he wanted to hear from the customers directly. Providian Financial delegated marketing efforts into all their disciplines. So everything from their quants and financial engineers that sat in the back offices to their front office people, to the assistants, to everyone in the managerial hierarchy, everyone talked about the business. So you can hire a local marketing agency, if you've grown to that scale and that's what you need, but you have to understand no one is going to care about your customers, or at least they shouldn't care about your customers as much as you do, right? Like, your livelihood, your family's livelihood, your employee's livelihood depends upon the customers, right? If they're not buying, there is no business and nobody gets paid. So I think one simple way to do this, if you're a small business, is to do a little bit of coaching to get that mental shift in employees to understand that feedback coming from customers is super helpful. Short example, if you look in like the paper I used to when I was younger, and it would say like, lease this car for $299 a month with $3,000 down. But you get to the dealership and it's a one of one, and that car is of course gone by the time you get there. And every other car is now, instead of $299 a month with $3,000 down, it's $499 a month with $5,000 down. And you're like, what the heck? Like, you said this, you got me in the door, and I feel like this is really immoral or unethical. You may run some kind of flyer deal where you think it's really clear to the customer, like, hey, save 25% off these services. And maybe it ends up you getting a bunch of feedback from your service people that are out in the field from customers saying like, hey, this feels like I got cheated. You said it was, I don't know, 25% off all these services, but the one service I actually called about and needed like wasn't included because of some weird wording thing. And the person in the field didn't know how to understand and like deal with that situation. But they can bring that feedback back, right? And understand like, feedback is great for the business. It's how we learn. It's how we iterate, and it keeps us close to the customer and makes them realize like, we understand, we mess up, we make mistakes, and we're willing to fix them. So I think getting that mental shift, and that comes from coaching. Like, most people will take feedback personally, but there's some good books, like Radical Candor is a wonderful book about feedback. It might be helpful for your team. Moving on here, number 3, get out of the office and face to face with the customers. So customer proximity is an absolute essential for all small business owners. Jim Koch, again from Boston Beer, famous for hanging out at bars. NBA Commissioner David Stern, who back in the 80s like turned the NBA around completely. Like, it was losing television ratings, and he made it a global brand. I know some of the things he did towards the end of his career are a little debatable, but if we look back to the 80s and 90s, like, he basically saved the NBA and really doubled down on it. He was known for sitting in the stands with the customer, right? The person who's at the game, buying the ticket, cheering on the team, instead of being in the skyboxes. Like, he was there and intimately understanding what they needed. So one strategy here is to have, pick up the phone and call 5 customers a week, let's say, for the business owner. Let's say you have 1,000 clients. Just call 5 a week. And not because they haven't done business with you in 3 months, you haven't heard from them in a year and a half, but because you genuinely just want to check in on them and see how they're doing. Like, be a human being. In a world of digital everything, email, DMs, comments, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're the person who actually picks up the phone, or maybe you write 5 letters a week specifically to customers and they actually get something in the mail, if they're older generation, like they're going to check the mail and they're still going to read that stuff. Like, what a huge differentiator you're making versus all your competitors in the space. And one thing that's required for this is a good CRM system. Take some time, research. There's a lot of options out there. You don't have to pay for the most expensive thing that has all the bells and whistles. Like, you basically just need to track some notes. Like, hey, so and so has this family and their daughter plays softball and the son plays basketball and blah 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 blah. Like, just things that you have touch points for those customers and clients, and you can keep reaching out to and really have your hand on the pulse there. Number 4, use market research cautiously. So the law of averages can distort your view of the market. And I want to be clear, this isn't to say that market research isn't helpful, but it's important to understand that you read a lot of things that are like, everyone must do this. Absolutely have to do these 9 things, these 10 things. Maybe, but it's like saying the law of averages is interesting because a lot of people like hot tea and a lot of people like iced tea, but most people don't like lukewarm tea. So that average is distorting things. They use an example in the book about New Coke, which came out in the mid 80s. And they did a bunch of focus groups, like everyone liked the taste and everything. But when they released it, it was a bomb. Like, nobody actually liked it. They looked at the averages of the focus groups and thought like, hey, this is going to work. And you hear this a lot about LinkedIn. Like, everyone is on LinkedIn, but are they? I mean, in today's world, it seems like it's a lot of SaaS people are on LinkedIn, but like, let's say as a small business consulting firm, I want to help electricians, plumbers. Are they on LinkedIn every day like somebody in tech sales is? Highly doubtful. So make sure like you can use that information. It can be helpful, but you want to go to where your customers are. And this is how it goes back to like, who is your customer? Like, unless you know that, you don't know where to go to find them. One thing that can be absolutely helpful, especially if you're early on in your business or you've got an idea to start a business, get out there and ask, stop making assumptions and just reading, and get out there and ask people like, how do they choose what services they use? How do they choose that product? Where do they hear about the product? Where do they hear about the service? Like, the last time you called a plumber, why did you call that plumber or that HVAC company? Or why did you use that med spa or that esthetician or, that accountant, that attorney? And find out like where customers that you actually want to do business with, not that the internet's talking about, or the people you want, how are they hearing about your product and how are they consuming your product and service? Vital to understand that. And the last one here is hire only passionate missionaries. So outside of this idea of having a very visceral and intimate understanding of who your target market is, your archetype of the customer you want, this to me is the big one, right? So it's almost like treating your small business or your startup business with religious zeal, where the people that work for you are missionaries of your business, including yourself. And your early customers, hopefully all your customers, are evangelists of the business, which means they freely and willingly cannot stop talking about the business you have. The NBA back in the 80s and 90s, and I assume it's still pretty true today, like their front office was stacked with NBA zealots. It's all they could talk about is basketball. They absolutely loved basketball. And this is so critical. Like, are your field service technicians, if you're an HVAC company, are they talking about your business when they're out and about? It doesn't mean it has to be their whole life, but like they should be talking about like how passionate and how much they love the business. And this one's tough. Like, hiring people is a difficult thing to do, hiring the right people. So you're already trying to make sure they're technically able to do what they need to do or licensed to be able to do what they need to do in your business, and that they're a good cultural fit. But it's also important that they are a mission fit. If I own a GMC dealership, do I really want a bunch of people who only drive foreign automobiles because they like the way they handle or the way they're built? Or do I want the person that's all about like, made in America and, they're probably a little more patriotic and whatever. Like, they only drive GMC and they like to drive big trucks. And like, that's a very different person than the person that likes to drive a 2-door BMW, right? So we want to have people that are exemplifying and talking about our business as much as humanly possible. That's our own employees as missionaries, ourselves being out there and close to the customers, and of course our customers as being our evangelists for the business. So just a quick overview here of the first five rules of the 10 rules of radical marketing. And again, you don't have to do all these, use all of them. No one's saying that. It's just to try and get some idea generation of how to think differently and do things differently so you can stand out from your competition. Number 1, the CEO must own the marketing. Number 2, make sure the marketing department is small and flat. Number 3, get out of the office and face to face with the customers. Number 4, use market research cautiously. Number 5, hire only passionate missionaries. I can close with this by saying Once you know the target market, the target audience, the target customer you want to go after, and you may be wrong, by the way, you may find out you're not right, but the only way you can know that is by being close to the customer. You are the face of the business. Does not mean you need to do everything. With proper systems, proper delegation, proper software, really inexpensive software nowadays to help out with this kind of stuff, you don't need to be everything, but you have to own it and you have to know what the customers want. So I appreciate you listening. Part two of the video will probably be out next week, and we'll be going over the second 5 rules. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feedback, love feedback, feel free to leave a comment or shoot me a message. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and thanks for listening.